Is back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes, is going for it.
Oh my God! What a goal! And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3-2.
Hello, welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And hopefully Subaru Park's still there. I don't know. Can somebody go down and see if Subaru Park hasn't floated away in the Delaware River? What crazy storms we got here in Maryland. I know in western parts of Pennsylvania, absolute downpour of rain from Hurricane Ida. So hopefully Subaru Park's still there so we can get to the game on Friday night against the New England Revolution. Which, speaking of the New England Revolution, I feel like it makes perfect sense why I would bring on this guest for the New England Revolution. I was like, yeah, let me go ahead and potentially get Brad Feldman back on or Charlie Davies. But then this person was like, Anthony Fontana is coming back into the team. Who plays good against New England. Let me go ahead and talk about Anthony Fontana. So the president of the Anthony Fontana fan club is Mr. Ricky Zellefrow. Ricky, how are you, man?
Still apparently here. There was a lot of floods going on when I was driving home. Oh, that's why I ended up coming straight home instead of doing some other things after work. But what can you do?
Not drown, right? So I don't know. You're closer to Subaru Park than me, so you're obviously recording from home. People can't see that, but if you were recording off your phone, I would say, yeah, Ricky, while you're doing this, why don't you go down to Subaru Park? Because I don't know if it's still there. So you guys are listening to this podcast, and maybe you guys can go ahead and check and make sure Subaru Park's still down there. But like I said, Anthony Fontana, you got a lot to say about Anthony Fontana. We'll definitely talk about Anthony Fontana. But before we talk about the New England preview, DC United versus Philadelphia Union, I really don't have anything else to add after that loss. Really don't want to talk about this game, but, Ricky, you went down to the game with me. I believe your first time down at Aldi Field. What you make of the game, your experience down there, the field? The field was terrible. I touched on that the last episode, so if people want to go ahead and find out what I said, just listen to the last episode. But Ricky, your thoughts?
It's definitely an interesting stadium. I think a lot of teams have gone towards the more verticality in their seatings, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing. I think it was a little bit extreme in the section that we were in, where it was like all 3 of us after walking up the steps were kind of like, this is a bit much. And then it's like everybody else was coming from the bus was behind us, and like Adam Booth, who is a very fit person, technically speaking, probably not actually, because he always complains at the beginning of the season, like, oh, I got to get in capo shape or whatever. Like, is getting to the top of these steps going, this is a bit much. So it was a bit much. And like you said, the main thing I just remember is how their supporter section is just cut in half for no reason by the outdoor bar over there. And it's like, there's many places that they could put that bar, and that was where they chose to do it. And it's just like, that can't look great. And it's an interesting location. It's definitely a good location compared to if you live in Philly and you're a Union person. It's not a great location if you're a Philly person, but I live in Westchester. I don't really care. It was a fun trip, Got to trade some Pokemon. That was a good look. Got to spend time with you guys. Got to see that Todd is not a terrible driver. Positives. You got to look on the bright side of life.
Yeah, you definitely do. Especially with the way that the Union have been playing as of late. And yeah, that game, I said last episode, the worst Union game that I've seen since I've started paying attention to this team. Now, obviously, you've been around a lot longer than I have, so you and I'm sure the rest of the listeners can name like 5 other games that were worse than that DC United game. But for me personally, watching every single game, definitely 2019. That's the worst Union game that I can recall the last 3 years. In 2018, there were some bad games. The Union were definitely up and down in 2018, but ever since Ernst got there, that was the worst performance that I think we've seen from the Philadelphia Union. But no more talking about that game. New York City played New England when the Union took on DC United. New York City won that game 2-0, and it's really tough for me to make anything out of that game because one, New York City and the Revs were playing on 10 days rest for New York City and 7 days rest for New England, and also just the fact that the game was played at Yankee Stadium. And how can you judge a soccer game from that field? I mean, we all make jokes for how small that field is, how terrible that field is, but yet the Union still can't find a way to win at Yankee Stadium. And I think, for New York City, that plays a huge advantage for them to get wins because teams come in there not used to playing on such a small pitch where they don't care. They play there. They find a way to get wins. And, the Revolution, they had a couple of chances to go ahead early on in this game. Buxa, he missed a couple of chances with his header just wide. Sean Johnson was absolutely beaten on a couple of chances and didn't go in at all. Matt Turner doing what Matt Turner does best, made 3 key saves in the game for the Revs. And if it wasn't for him, I think New York City could have easily have won that game by 3 or 4 goals. So many free headers that the Revs gave New York City, which is a little bit surprising because when I was looking this up, New England are in the top 3 for the fewest allowed headed goals out of all MLS teams. Before they gave up the 1 headed goal to Tati Castellanos, they only given up 2 headed goals this season. I think the Union have given up like 7 or 8 so far this season. So the Union defend headers terribly, while New England do a good job defending them, but they did not do a good job against New York City. But look, besides the headed goal, just credit to Tati Castellanos for making those runs in behind the fullbacks and the center backs. Like I said, Buxa, he came close a couple of times in the game with a couple of headed shots. But the good news for the Union is Buxa will be missing this game due to being on international duty with Poland. But I guess my question to you, Ricky, would you say that New England and New York City are the 2 best teams in the East? I know that's where it stands right now, but Nashville, they've been making noise all season long. I know they have a ton of draws, but I think they only have like 2 or 3 losses all season. So New England and New York City, the best 2 teams in the East?
I definitely think New England's the best team in the East. I don't necessarily I'm never really convinced by New York City. I think inherently they've got kind of like a cheat code. If you're gonna play them on the road, you're gonna have issues. But I mean, looking at this table, I mean they're a game less than the 2 teams in front of them, so they could be the second best team in the East. But then you have games where they came down to Chester and they didn't do much for 90 minutes on a Wednesday night game, and it was just well, if you're gonna be the second best team in the East, and if you look at the East, everybody is within 5 points between second and not 5 points, but between second and ninth, you're looking at 8 points, and the Union are only 3 points behind. They've played a few more games than New York, and they'll have even more played games than New York after Friday. But I don't necessarily think that you could honestly say that New York is that much better than, say, Orlando or Nashville. Necessarily the Union either. I know you talk a lot about the Union are an average team. I think they're still a slightly above average team. It's just everybody in the East is either bad or average at this point, or New England. And it's hard to compare everybody else when they're all basically within 3 points right there at the top of the East outside of New England.
Yeah, I mean, everybody in the East, Jim Curtin said this a couple weeks ago, everybody in the East is just beating up on each other, and it's going to continue to happen. And I think New England and New York City play again next week or 2 weeks. I don't know. I know it's coming out really, really soon again. I think that game's in New England too. So I think it's definitely going to be telling if New York City is a serious team in the East when they go to Gillette Stadium if they can find a way to get a win on the road against New England. Because look, like I said, like you said, like people listening, just everybody makes fun of that baseball stadium. It's like, it's such a small field, and the Union have yet to figure out how to beat New York City in New York. And I can remember just the last couple of years when we get closer and closer to playoff time, everybody's like, yeah, hopefully the Union don't have to play in New York City because they're going to lose in Yankee Stadium. And the last time we played New York City in the playoffs was in 2018, I believe it was. We lost that game 3-1. Corey Burke, I believe, got a goal. David Villa, I think, scored for New York City. I don't know, it's been, 4 years ago? Almost 4 years ago. Now you're asking me to try to remember a lot. But, yeah, that baseball stadium is not a good place to play soccer on. And for a league that wants to be taken seriously, like my two issues, and I know that, look, here I go going off on a rant, is like, how can you say you want to be taken seriously when, one, you have one team playing in a baseball stadium, they yet to find any land to make a soccer stadium, so they're splitting time between Red Bull Arena and that baseball stadium, and then you have teams playing on turf. I don't get it. I get why Atlanta United play on turf because they're indoors and everything, but I don't know. I feel like Arthur Blank could check out the money and say, look, let's put real grass in here because, look, this guy definitely has a lot of money, and look at all the players that they bring in every single year. It's like they do a lot of things that a lot of teams in MLS won't dare to do. And then you got Gillette Stadium, terrible stadium to play on. I don't know. That's my biggest issues with MLS is how Don Garber can say, yeah, it's okay for teams to still play on turf, and it's okay for NYCFC to still not have a stadium. But let's go ahead and talk about the last time New England and the Philadelphia Union played. So we've got to go all the way back a couple weeks ago between the last time these two teams played. And New England, as we remember, won that game 2-1. The Union played a whole bunch of young players. Andre Blake saved a penalty on Gustavo Bo, but Bo was able to score the rebound. Matt Polster runs in behind Bizo to open the scoring for the Revs. Paxton Aronson scores a golazo on his starting debut against the Revs. Sergio Santos should have had at least one in that game, but Matt Turner came up big with some huge saves for the Revs. Like I said earlier on, Matt Turner's been doing that all season, whether or not it's been with the Revs or whether it's been with U.S. national team. Matt Turner is in fine form. Lucky for us, he won't be playing against the Union Friday night. But look, Sergio Santos, even though he didn't score against New England, he was able to get behind New England's back line with ease, in my opinion, just wasn't able to finish. And I know that's the big complaint on social media with people is like, yeah, Sergio Santos is making those runs. He's having chances at goals, but he just can't finish his chances. But look, I would rather take that from Sergio Santos than a striker like Kasper Schmeichel, who cannot find the back of the net no matter what. His touch is terrible. Look, so many people when we went to DC United were complaining about Kasper. You can hear people like, ugh. I complain about Kasper now after I defended him for so long. I don't think you're the biggest fan of Kasper Schmeichel either. But look, just play Sergio Santos behind, and I know that's going to be one of my keys to the game. But yeah, that's where things stood. Last time the Union played near New England, 2-1, New England won. But the kids didn't play bad in that game against New England, in my opinion, and I know we'll touch on this a little bit later, where you think that the Union should send out every single homegrown player. But just your thoughts the last time the Union took on New England.
That was what the game we had put together, where it was just like right before the Club America game, where we just decided, okay, we're just gonna throw out the B team essentially, which is kind of what we all wanted them to do, and it's what Jim has shown that he likes to do before those bigger games, like the last Open Cup final. He did a similar thing where Jay Simpson scored 2 goals against Sporting Kansas City, and this time he's kind of like forced into more of a move just because, you're missing 7 players, probably 5 of them starters, 2 of them one of them a big bench shooter, one of them your backup right back, which is a questionable decision to make a midseason signing of a backup player for a position who also gets called up to his national team. And that's an interesting choice. They also don't have Jack Elliott because 2 interesting yellow cards in a row. Which, what can you do about that? So they're missing Jack, and they're missing 5 other starters, and you're missing 2 other players, one of whom would definitely have contributed in Corey Burke, who was basically your attacking sub for like the second half of the season. And one of the strangest things I've ever seen was Kasper Shabilko starting last week when Corey Burke just made way more sense as a starter if you don't have Sergio, especially with a young player like Davo on the bench who you could kind of have do the Sergio thing off the bench. And I guess Corey also has a lot of speed off the bench, but if you don't have a starting player that is making the defenders run, when you go in at minute 60 and are like, hey, we're going to attack you with some speed, it doesn't really matter because the defenders haven't done anything. I mean, I could defend Alejandro Bedoya for 90 minutes on the left side of a defense, and I would be perfectly fine, and I can't run, which is, it's more about the fact that I have a good cardio than about anything else on that one. Not to toot my own horn. But I also went back and looked at this the last time we played each other, the home game in May, where Jim Curtin used 2 subs, which, as we all remember, he liked to do that at the beginning of the season, where he started Jack McGlynn in this game. This is one of the games where he started Jack McGlynn instead of Anthony Fontana and proceeded to bring Anthony Fontana on because that makes sense. And now this is the game. Both goals scored past the 85th minute. Teal Bunbury, and then right after that, Kasper Shabilko, which could possibly be the last time Kasper Shabilko has had an effort anywhere near a goal. And then, of course, the other sub being Corey Burke on for Sergio Santos. And we all know we're going to have to come into this game. We're going to have at least, 7 different starters than we had the last game, especially Powell was at right back. So there's one. Who's going to start at right back? Will it be Nathan Harriel? How much do you want to bet it's not going to be Nathan Harriel? That's a great question. We're going to have a different center back. We're probably going to have one same center back, one left back. Leon Flock will start somewhere. You just told us apparently Bedoya might not be able to go on Friday. So that's one. Sergio Santos still kind of injured, which means you're kind of in a weird position where you've got Kasper Shabilko, Kai Wagner, and Jacob Glesnes and Leon Flock. You got 4 starters returning for this game on Friday. So we're going to have to do something here, right? And not necessarily all of the obvious moves are available. Like you can start Leon Flock at the defensive midfield, or you can put Jack McGlynn at left midfield. You can just sub straight in Stuart Finley right next to Glesnes. You could put Harriel at right back. Is that going to happen? That's a great question. If Bedoya can't play, Quinn Sullivan, obviously there. And then this is where it gets interesting, because if you have the second striker position open, do you start Davo? Is that his first look? Is Fontana fully able to go for 65 minutes? So you start him there and Aronson at the 10? Do you start Davo and Fontana at the 10? Do you piss everybody off and start Davo and Aronson at the 10? Everybody would love that. I would be the one pissed off there. Until the beginning of this conversation earlier, I thought maybe Fontana made a lot of sense to start, but maybe they didn't intend on playing him on Saturday as much as we thought they did, now that we've talked about it a little. I don't know. It'll be very interesting. The most important thing is if Joe Bendick is your starting goalie on Friday, I will be a little bit annoyed.
Yeah, I definitely would be annoyed. So look, Ricky and I were talking before we recorded about the union's availability report, which we're recording this podcast on Wednesday night. So Jim Curtin's press conference is on Thursday when you guys are listening to this podcast. So I can't get any answers or questions from Jim because obviously, we're on Wednesday and that's on Thursday. But I was looking at this by MLS. They released the availability report, and like Ricky said, So out is still El Senior, apparently, with his hamstring injury. And questionable, they still have Sergio Santos listed with a hamstring injury. But then the new player they listed, like Ricky said, was Alejandro Bedoya. And they said apparently he has an ankle injury. Now, I didn't notice that he got hurt against DC United. And maybe somebody else did. But if they did, I feel like we would have seen that, people complaining about it, talking about it on Twitter, which I didn't see anybody talking about that. And that makes you think, okay, look, who came in for Bedoya? It became Anthony Fontana at the 85th minute. And like you said, Ricky, well, maybe if Bedoya wasn't hurt, maybe they wouldn't have brought in Anthony Fontana. They probably wouldn't have brought in Anthony Fontana because Jim hates using 5 substitutions. He never likes to use every single substitution that he has. At least he's not making those 2 substitutes like you alluded to a little while ago that he did at the beginning of the season. But yeah, it's a lot of players for the Union to miss, like you said as well. There's 5 starters that are definitely missing. Alvis Powell, Corey Burke, Andre Blake, all with Jamaica. Jose Martinez with Venezuela. Olivier Mbizo is away with Cameroon. Jamir Montero is with Cape Verde. And Daniel Gazdag is back with the Hungary national team. And then for New England, Adam Bukska is with Poland. Matt Turner is with the U.S. men's national team. And then Tejan Buchanan, the Union killer the last couple of years, is away with Canada. So that's good news for the Union that the Revs are missing 3 crucial starters. And then on top of that, Carlos Gil's still listed as questionable. I don't think he'll be back. So yeah, the Union are going against a New England team that is missing 4 really key players for New England. But a lot of Union fans are saying, play the kids. And honestly, the lineup that I want to see personally against New England is Sergio Santos and Davo up top, Anthony Fontana at the 10, Jack McGlynn, Quinn Sullivan at the 2 8s, Leon Flock as the 6. I want Kai Wagner as the left back. Obviously, Stuart Finley comes in for the suspended Jack Elliott. Jacob Glesnes, who I think needs a break. I think, if anything, if Jack Elliott wasn't suspended, you would, I hope, would see Jack Elliott go in at the right center back spot, and Stuart Finley play next to him on the left. But I don't know. It seems like Jim loves Jacob Glesnes, even though he's been making a lot of mistakes, or too many mistakes, the last couple games, I feel like. And one thing that you've been convincing me of, you say this every Union game, is you would love to see him play wingback, or you would just love to see him play as a right back in general. Ali Bedoya. Yeah, I would definitely be here for Ali Bedoya playing right back over Nate Harriel, because I feel like if the Union were confident in Nate, then they wouldn't have went out and signed Alvis Powell as Biser's backup. And especially, like you said, too, why would you sign a backup right back who's always caught up for his national team, where you know Biser is going to get caught up to the national team with Cameroon? So when international window comes up, you're losing both of your right backs. So yeah, it doesn't make sense to me why they would bring in Alvis Powell, unless that's them saying, yeah, we don't trust Nate Harriel yet. But I guess it could also be like, yeah, we don't know how much we trust Biser, but then Biser's been amazing offensively, and we've all complained about what he's done defensively. So you convinced me that, yeah, I would love to see Ali Bedoya play right back, but we've also seen Jim Curtin early in the year play Matt Real as a right back. And then in goal, like you said, yeah, definitely don't want to see Joe Bendick in the goal, want to see Matt Freese. But I think, honestly, in all honesty, I think the lineup that we'll see is Sergio Santos, Kasper Schmeichel, unfortunately. Quinn Sullivan does not start in my lineup that I think we'll see. I think Aronson will be at the 10, McGlynn at the 8, Bedoya will be at the 8, Flock at the 6, Wagner, Finley, Glesnes, Harriel, and Freese. I think that's what we'll see. But I don't know. How serious is Bedoya? Who knows? I know, well, we all know that Jim loves leaving Ali out there as long as he can. I'm sure Ali would say, yeah, I'm fine to go. How true is that? We don't know. Now, look, maybe Ali's not even injured. Maybe you guys will get the answer tomorrow at the press conference, and then MLS just has something on the website that is completely false. But I don't know. He wasn't listed last week on the player availability report, and now he is. So maybe there is something to it. Hopefully somebody asks that tomorrow in Jim's press conference, so you guys and us can all get a clear answer to that. But yeah, Ali Bedoya at right back, if he is good to go, would you be opposed to seeing that?
Are you asking me, the person that probably suggested it to you, or are you asking in general, and I'm just interrupting the dead space. Anyways, no, I definitely thought there's been for a while, especially like when Ray Gaddis was your right back, that you definitely could have moved Bedoya back there. And I think now it's definitely like a present idea that Bedoya just doesn't have the legs to get in the space in the midfield for more than like 60 minutes a game, except for weirdly just that New York City FC game where he was always there until he got subbed out. No, he played that full game. I'm pretty sure. I kept complaining about it. And I think like he's definitely got the capabilities of defending from a right back position. He's not gonna take away offensively in the same way that like Ray Gaddis would have. I don't think he's gonna add anything that Mbaizo would, or even like Alice Powell last week. I think he started in that game to give more of a defensive presence at DC, but he did a lot in the attack that like he had like 2 shots on goal pretty much. It was a very interesting performance from Alice Powell. And then in one of the weirdest subs I think I've ever seen, Mbaizo coming on for Powell at like 60 minutes just still confuses me, because like Powell played really well and was doing things for the attack. And I think that was just kind of a wasted sub when you had Davo and Fontana on the bench still. And you never mind. Let's not talk about that. I don't think it's necessarily a thing that we'd see now, and I honestly feel like depending on how the rest of the season goes, I don't know how much longer Bedoya's contract is, but I kind of feel like he's kind of reached the point where like maybe there's a year, maybe there's a year and a half left in his career, but I don't think he really plans on doing this for much longer. And it's like, it's interesting because he's still like, I know there was articles recently about, Giovanni Reina and how upset he gets with teammates and how they've always worked with him on like his reactions to how things happen on the field. And it's like Bedoya's been upset with his teammates since like the beginning of his career, and nobody's ever said anything to him. But now with Giovanni Reina, they're like making an active, oh, you can't be upset because your teammate's worse than you. And I don't know. I feel like if we're looking at this team for just Friday, you could definitely throw out Bedoya if he's available to play. I don't necessarily think like I did maybe 2 years ago that Bedoya could be a right back for the rest of his career, because I don't necessarily think there's a lot of that career left. And at some point, as much as he is your captain, you've got to make the choice to play the player that's playing better. And I don't know, in 4 months we might find out that Quinn Sullivan is gone, and nobody would be surprised. But there's probably somebody else that can take that position, and we'll see what happens. I don't know how much they believe in Nathan Ariel. Elsinho was the other option, and if he's not able to play, then thank God, because that would not be fun to watch for the 35 minutes that he would last on the field at right back at the beginning of a game. The other thing is, I don't think Matt Real is anywhere near close to starting for this team for many reasons, but stranger things have happened.
Well, it's desperate times for the Union, as we said. 5 starters, definitely 6 starters not going to play here, with Jack Elliott being suspended. But look, Jim Curtin, by the way, before I talk about analytics, Ali Bedoya signed a 2-year contract extension at the beginning of the 2020 season with a team option for the 2022 season. So yeah, Ali Bedoya contract is coming closer and closer to an end. Who knows if he'll be given another one? I don't know. We shall see. But yeah, Jim Curtin talks a lot about analytics, right? He loves analytics. He says he picks his formations, his team on analytics, not on form. Well, one player, look, I know you said you didn't want to talk about it, but one player who's definitely not in form because he hasn't been playing, recently came back from concussion protocol. He has 4 goals in 6 games against the Revs. Sergio Santos has 4 goals in 9 games against the Revs. That player that has 4 goals in 6 games is Anthony Fontana. And you love talking analytics. You talk about how everybody in the team's all analytical. And if anything, 4 goals in 6 games, that talks a lot about analytics right there. That's almost a goal every single game that he steps on the field against the New England Revolution. Okay, you don't want to play him against other teams, that's fine. Anthony Fontana knows how to find the back of the net against the New England Revolution. We've seen the last couple games that he's came on the field. He causes problems for the defense that New England throws back out there. They don't know how to handle Anthony Fontana. He knows how to get in behind them. He has a shot from distance. Look, Matt Turner's not going to be here. And by the way, the New England predicted lineup that I think we'll see is Theo Bunbury and Gustavo Bo up top, Anar Traustason and Tommy McNamara as your 2 attacking midfielders. And then we'll see Martial and Matt Polster as your 2 defensive midfielders. And then DeJuan Jones, Henry Kessler, Andrew Farrell, Brandon Bye, and then Brad Knighton will be your defensive people. Brad Knighton obviously is the goalkeeper, not a center back or anything like that. So I don't know. On paper, it looks like it's a weird 4-2-2-2 formation. But yeah, going back to the whole thing about Anthony Fontana, every time he plays against the Revs, he's good. Look, you guys remember in 2018 when he made his debut, who did he make his debut against? The New England Revolution. What did he do on his debut? Scored a goal against the Revs. Everybody said, yes, we got a great homegrown player coming out of the academy. This guy's the real deal. And what happened ever since that moment? I don't know. It seems like Jim doesn't trust Anthony Fontana. Doesn't give him the starting job. Says at the beginning of the season, yeah, he has the keys to the number 10. And yeah, we all know how that went. How many times have I talked about that on the podcast? And you love analytics, Jim. Why wouldn't you start Anthony Fontana? People say he looks super fit in practice. You said, yeah, he's completely fit in practice. Why not start him against New England?
I found, so I don't know when it was that we had this conversation. It was the 2 of us and your sister, and we were talking about when Anthony Fontana scored that winning goal. I think it was against the Revs, where it was a corner kick and it comes out. And it was basically the Quinn Sullivan goal, right? And after the game, it was like we'd for like 3 weeks just been hearing about, oh, does Anthony Fontana have attitude issues? Why isn't he playing? Because he hadn't been playing. And it was just like, I'm pretty sure Matt Freese just being like, yeah, no, we've been doing that after practice for like every day. And it was just like, oh, so Anthony Fontana doesn't have attitude issues. And then I was like, oh, Anthony Fontana is getting more minutes here and more minutes there. And it's like, in that period of time, he just scored like, I mean, we played New England like 5 times, so maybe he just got used to figuring out how to score against New England. But it was just like, I went and found that tweet, and I was like looking at it, and I was just like, this is interesting, because there was a space in time where like so many fans were just like, oh, Anthony Fontana is just not good at soccer or whatever, or he's got a bad attitude. Maybe he's the next Austin Trusty. And then it was like, oh no, Brandon's left. Anthony Fontana is going to get his chance. And then I guess Jamiro Montero is a great 10. And then we went out and signed another 10, even though Jamiro Montero was a great 10, guys. Right? Yeah. And then he gets this concussion. And I think we all are kind of aware that Anthony Fontana is not long for Philadelphia. And I think we all kind of knew that this might be the last bit of time for him, especially when that keys to the number 10 conversation happened, and we're all just like, but you didn't give him the keys to the number 10. Like, he never played at the 10 because Sergio was hurt and Corey was hurt, and Then the second you've got the opportunity to do it, you go and play Jamiro there, and then Leon's playing great at the 8. So Leon stays on the field, and Leon can't pass the ball. Are we aware of this? Leon Flock can't pass the ball. It's going to be great next year when Jose leaves and Leon's our 6, and we have an 8 who is slow. And I'm not talking about Alejandro Bedoya. I'm talking about Jack McGlynn. He is slow. He's great at passing the ball. I had this conversation with you the other day, Todd, where it looks like a lot of our homegrowns were built for the possession system that we used to play. And now they're all on the big team. And it's just like Jack McGlynn is Harris Medunjanin, just shorter. Quinn Sullivan's definitely a winger, but he works kind of like Alejandro Bedoya, so we can throw him on that side of the field. And like Fontana and Aronson are 10s, but we don't need a 10 in this system. A counter-attacking high-press system doesn't need a number 10. And everybody that's complaining about like Gazdag isn't creating like scoring chances, and it's like, let's have an honest conversation. Brendan Aronson is not a number 10. He doesn't create scoring chances in the same way that like your Borch Dochkal would, or like even like Ilsinho earlier in his career. And I just feel like, yes, this is a great opportunity for Anthony Fontana to get one last hurrah in, because he was already linked to Italy before this season, and his contract's over. And honestly, and I've said this in private to a lot of people, if I was Anthony Fontana after the last 2-3 years, like, oh, I'm the big homegrown signing and I play against New England and I score a goal, and then Borch Dokal shows up and I never play again. Oh, Brendan Aronson just plays a lot better defense than me and I never play again. Oh, I have the keys to the number 10. And then I'm not a good striker, so I never play again. Would you want to stay around if that kept happening? I wouldn't.
Yeah. It's fair points. I mean, especially when a player's as young as Anthony Fontana, where he's not even in the prime of his career yet, where he couldn't have started his career any better than the way that he did. And for whatever reason, I guess we'll never know what the issues are behind the scene between Jim and Anthony Fontana, but Anthony Fontana is not signing a new contract extension with the Union. And the only reason that the Union, in my opinion, would offer Anthony Fontana a new contract is so they could go ahead and sell him and get money for him. But now Anthony's like, no, I'm not even going to do that. Like, you guys have screwed me over the last couple of years, where, yeah, obviously you guys want to make money off of me, but now it's not going to happen because you guys just aren't playing me. And you guys don't trust me for whatever reason. And now in January, when I'll be a free agent, I can go sign with any team that I want on a free. And it's definitely going to happen, I believe, in Italy, because he has an Italian passport, I believe it is. It makes it easier for him to sign with teams in Italy, or just not just Italy, anywhere in Europe, because he has a European passport. So, yeah, Anthony Fontana, would love to see him get one more start against New England, the team that he does so well against. But knowing Jim, he's not going to start him. Even though he says he loves analytics. He loves analytics. 4 goals in 6 games. He's not going to start him. But we shall see what happens. Not holding my breath that Anthony Fontana gets a start or even plays against New England at all. And I gave you guys my predicted lineup for New England. Tier Bunbury has 2 goals in 22 games for the Revs. Gustavo Bou has 1 goal, 2 assists in 7 games for the Revs. So not great numbers. Their Union killer, Tejan Buchanan, has 3 goals against the Union, but obviously he's not here to play against the Union. So look, looking at the numbers, not a ton of guys on this roster right now for the Revs that score against the Union that will be available on Friday night. But we shall see. Now, before we wrap up this podcast, the last couple things I want to just throw out there real quick is some random stats for New England. They have given up 26 goals this season. 16 of those goals have come on the road. Between minutes 16 and 30, they've scored 10 goals. Between minutes 31 and 45, they've scored 8 goals. Minutes 46 through 60, they've scored 7 goals. They haven't won an MLS game against the Union at Subaru Park since 2015. Now, yes, they won that playoff game that we all unfortunately remember in 2020. First game of the playoffs, we lost that game 2-0 to New England. But look, MLS game, they have not won at Subaru Park since 2015. So, yeah, you look at that and you're like, okay, yeah, they're due anytime now. They probably should have beat the Union back in May when Teal scored, and then the Union come right back with Casper scores a controversial goal. Goal stands for the Union, and we walk away with a point. We're like, okay, yeah, this is not a bad result. We'll take it because New England just doesn't win against us. But my 3 keys to victory for the Union. Number 1, all these keys are very, very simple. You guys will say, well, duh. Number 1, score first. Because if the Union score first, they have 8 wins, 2 ties. Number 2, be strong defensively between the minutes that I just told you guys that New England are strongest at scoring. Because look, when New England are at their strongest, they're scoring those goals between those minutes. And if the Union can be defensively strong, defensively sound, I think we'll be good against New England, especially with them missing 4 key players on this match. And number 3, play Sergio Santos in behind the back line. Look, we saw what he did against New England last time that we played them. And we've seen what Sergio Santos can do this season. Pace kills. Now, the question is, can he finish his chances when he gets behind the defensive players? And those questions still remain, but I believe in Sergio, and like I just said, pace kills. And anything, Ricky, you want to add? My prediction, just play the lineup I gave you guys that I want to see. That's my prediction.
I think that as much as we're missing a lot of players that are starters for us, I feel like the Revs are missing more key players than we are. They're missing their starting center forward. They're missing their star right winger. They're missing their star attacking midfielder. And probably most importantly, their star goalkeeper, like the star on the team, is going to start tomorrow or today, depending on how you look at it, for the United States against El Salvador. And that is probably the biggest thing. And the funniest thing is, you mentioned earlier how Anthony Fontana likes to score against New England. I think Anthony Fontana just really likes to score against Matt Turner, because all those goals, you just cut to a wide shot, and Matt Turner is just like getting chipped by Anthony Fontana from an insane angle. Probably my favorite one of those. And it's just like, they don't have their best players. The Union are without a lot of good players, And the thing we talk about the Union a lot with is that the team is the star. And we saw it the last time we played against New England, where we're throwing out a lineup that has like 3 18-year-olds in it or younger. And we're losing by a single goal, in which if Sergio doesn't mess up an early shot, we're in the position we want to be, where you're up 1-0 on the road in New England, and you just are a better team when you're playing with a 1-0 lead, when you're built like the Union are, than when you're down to stupid goals or you're missing the stupid shots. And I think this team can definitely go out and do something on Friday. And the other big thing is, the last time a certain player had a chance to get his shot to star, he didn't do a great job. There was a red card involved. I think he'll be less likely to make the defensive mistake that he made last time. And my only wish is that he doesn't party too hard, because tomorrow is his birthday and Friday is the game. So I think we have a much better shot at this game than we would have if this game had not been moved because of the game against Club America that is following after that game. New England is clearly the best team in the league. if the Union somehow managed to win this game, now I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm just saying if they do win this game, and you look at some of the other teams, like specifically the Revs will be 4 games up on New York City. And if New York City were to win all the games at hand, they'd still be 3 points behind the Revolution. The only team that's really close to them is Seattle. I think the West Coast just has a lot of better quality teams than the East does. There's 3 really good teams in the West, Sporting, Seattle, and I forget who the third team was, but they all have more points than the chasing pack in the East. And then New England is really good in the East, and then everybody else in the East could be better, but the fact is they all just, like you said, keep beating up on each other. So this will be a very interesting game for the Union to once again test themselves. There's been a lot of articles talking about how as long as the Union make the postseason, it doesn't really matter what they do in the regular season, and that is technically correct. And I think this is a great chance to be like, hey, we're still involved in this. We're still a pretty good team even without all of our players. And once we do have all our players back, and our coach decides to make in the right subs, maybe we'll have a chance at something.
Yeah, absolutely. And that team, the third team in the West that you were talking about, is the Colorado Rapids. They have 38 points, 11 wins, 5 draws, 4 losses, 20 goals scored against, 30 goals scored for. So Colorado, a surprise team in the West, which I'm sure a lot of people that just pay attention to this league would tell you they are super surprised with how well that Colorado are playing. But, let's just hope that the Union come out, play better than what we've seen them play the last couple weeks. And look, every time the kids come on, it seems like it's a lot more of an exciting game than when the regular starters are out there. So I don't see why that would change, because look, these guys is what they've grown up hoping for the whole lives, is eventually playing first team soccer. And it so happens to be that they got signed to the Union's academy, and the first team that they get professional contracts to are the Philadelphia Union. So look, they just want to impress so they can eventually go to Europe. But if you guys aren't following the podcast, follow @FreeKickPod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Go ahead, check out the website, thefreekickpodcast.com, where we get your podcast, The Free Kick. Ricky, where can people find you on social media?
It's Ricky _Rondo on something and Ricky Rondo on something else. It's Ricky _Rondo on Instagram and Ricky Rondo on Twitter are the 2 places that you can find me at. Yeah, just go and like my Instagram photos of us at the United game. That'd be great. It's only got 15 likes. It's making me feel really sad. Other people seem to just do a lot better, and I'm sad.
We'll get Ricky to 21. How's 21 sound? 21 sounds like a good number for you to get.
That's a good number.
It is a good number. So let's go ahead and hope that Friday night's game is a great game. And hopefully, if this episode hopefully was more positive than the last episode, and then hopefully the game against New England, hopefully we get a win and that episode can be more positive. But I guess we'll have to find out after Friday night. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.